Well, everyone, I'm so excited to have Mark Miller with us today. He's the Vice President of High Performance Leadership at a small company that sells chicken called Chick-fil-A. And I'm just thankful to know him. He's been part of Leadership Freak posts and things for many years, and his books are on my shelf. He has a whole section. You have a whole section, Mark, of books. And his latest is Culture Rules, right? Culture Rules.
Absolutely.
And his books, I just have to tell you, if you've been reading Mark's works, he started off writing fables and they're wonderful. And then, he's getting into a different style of writing these days. But your writing, Mark, it just gets better and better, and the content gets I'm just always excited when they say, "Hey, Mark has another book coming out. Do you want the book?" It's like, that's a stupid question. So, welcome, Mark, and let's talk about culture. Your book is set up on, hangs on three basic ideas, right, about culture. That one, culture is about aspiration. What are you aspiring to? Culture, you have to then amplify, and in order to really be successful, you have to adapt. First, let's begin with your definition of culture.
Well, culture is an unseen force that impacts everything that happens in an organization. And therein lies much of the challenge. How do you manage? How do you steward? How do you assess something that's an unseen force? Well, the good news is that the components of culture consist of what people see, what people hear, what people experience, and what people believe. And leaders have tremendous influence on those attributes. And so we want to help them shape those in a way that their culture is life giving and soul enriching.
Let me ask you, do you think culture and culture building is fundamentally a top-down thing, a bottom-up thing, a middle-out thing? I mean, I think it might be easy to say, well, it's sort of all of those. Excuse me, but I mean, just at the roots of it, what's your take on that?
At the root of it, every organization has a culture. It is either by design or default. Leaders are uniquely positioned, and I would argue have the responsibility as the designers. They can't build it single handedly. They need the help of other leaders, they need the help of the organization to buy in to the aspiration. But leaders are the architects, leaders are the designers. And when they abdicate that or fumble that ball, you get toxic workplaces.
Yes, yes. It reminds me of like the flea on the back of the elephant, right? They walk across a bridge and the bridge shakes and the flea says, "My, we shook that bridge." Well, you had a part in it, but there's a lot of other factors. Middle management is, of course, is huge in the influence on an organization. So,
Mhm.
um, I always think it's interesting. Is success in an organization about leaders? Is success about the people? Jim Collins set out to write a book about organizations and ended up writing a book about the power of leaders. What's your take on this? I'm asking because I feel like it connects some to culture building and, what's your take on just the power of a leader in an organization?
Somebody asked me just this week a similar question, and it was one of my colleagues. And I said, I really don't like to frame it around power. I like to frame it around stewardship, opportunity, influence, accountability, responsibility. And but if you're not really careful, power will impact your heart. And if your heart's not right, no one cares about your skills. And so, yes, I would not deny that leaders have some power, but I hope that's not in the forefront of their thinking.
Yes, yes. Thanks for framing it like that, and just I'm interested in your voice,
Well,
right?
let me give you just a quick story about that. I had one of these very expensive 360 assessments several years ago. The organization sponsored it. I was thankful for the opportunity. It actually came with a consultant who showed up at my office to debrief the whole thing, and it was fantastic. And the guy came in and he was troubled. I could tell. I didn't know if his dog had died, or I mean, I knew something was wrong. And I said, tell me before we even get started, like, how are you? I mean, I could just sense it. And I'm not really good at sensing that kind of stuff, but this was obvious. And he said, it's about your results. And I went, well, please tell me more. I mean, okay, thanks. And he said, when you walk in a room, you're not trying to be in charge. And I said, correct. And he said, well, that's what leaders do. And you're supposed to be a leader. And I said, well, that's what leaders may do in your paradigm. I said, when I walk in a room, I'm trying to figure out how I can add the most value. And sometimes that's to take charge, and sometimes it's to take out the trash. I said, I just think I've got a different worldview. And so the survey results and the 360, I actually think reflect not only my heart and my intention, but my actions over the last 40 years.
Yes.
I will take charge, but that's not the goal. The goal is to add value.
Yes. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for that. So there's an aspirational side to culture.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the aspire side.
Yes, as we thought about these rules, which by the way were derived and extracted from a global study, we had over 6,000 folks from 10 countries that helped us kind of do a deep dive into what is obviously a very complicated topic. And our distillation of that, we said the first rule is to aspire. The leader must share their hopes and dreams for their culture. Now, to some of your audience, they're going to think, well, that's pretty obvious. Well, okay, set that aside for a second. We met so many leaders that could not or had not articulated their hopes and dreams for their culture. And we said the test is not do you have it in your head and your heart, but can you state it in a way that is simple, clear, and repeatable? Because for this to become a reality, you need other people to understand it, to embrace it, and to pursue it. And if it's not simple, clear, and repeatable, you're going nowhere. Yeah. But we met so many leaders who could not do that. We said that has to be the first rule. I would argue it's first among equals.
Now, let me ask you, do you have some example? This is a stupid question. Of course you do. Give me some examples of something that is, a good example of, the message of aspirational culture you'd say to your organization. What's an example?
Okay. All right. Well, let me start by saying it comes in many forms, and this is what trips up a lot of leaders. Is there's a huge debate, and you would be aware of this, about what's the difference between mission and vision and purpose and ethos, and do you have to have values, and do they have to be stated? What I tell leaders is all of those are tools or mechanisms, and they are at your disposal so that you can share your hopes and dreams for your culture. And you pick one of those, you pick two of those, you pick three or four of those. But the more you pick, the harder it is, because you're trying to make it simple and clear and repeatable. And so I would argue that's where a lot of leaders stumble, because there's a little bit of paralysis by analysis. There are a lot of really smart people that define mission fundamentally differently. And there are really smart people that define vision fundamentally differently. And you can get caught up in that. And I just tell leaders, pick your own word and write your own definition, and then tell people what yours is.
All right.
So at our most recent annual meeting, you asked for a specific example. Andrew Cathy, our new CEO, said that his cultural aspiration for us as an organization is that we would be rooted in purpose and known for our care. Now, there's lots under that, and we do have a purpose and we do have some values, but he wanted to roll that up into that simple, clear, repeatable, known by our purpose, or known for our purpose and our care.
Yes.
Rooted in purpose. He just shared this last week. I should have it more crisp in my mind, but yeah, rooted in purpose and known for our care.
Okay.
And so that's what we're chasing. That's what we're trying to do.
Yes. Right. And like you're saying, there needs to be a purpose statement then, some sort of expression of what purpose looks like. And tell me about care, right? What do you when you got to get it down into behaviors, right? So right now, the aspirational side is describing the aspiration.
Right. And again, many in your audience would know that we're a restaurant company and we have hundreds of thousands of hourly team members. And so we're trying to, and have been for about 15 years, trying to create that caring environment in the restaurants. And so a very tactical example of that is something we call the core four. And back to your point of being tactical and behavioral and observable and measurable, we're teaching, and have been for many, many years, all of our frontline folks that we want you to maintain eye contact. We want you to share a smile. We want you to speak enthusiastically, and we want you to stay connected. And so the core four, we've been teaching it for more than a decade as a tangible way to demonstrate care. It's not all we do, but it's a tactical example, which is what I think you were looking for.
Well, and frankly, it seems to be working because your restaurants are so busy. I have no idea how those people keep smiling, because I would be pulling my hair out. Heck, I'm pulling my hair out because the line is like 2 blocks down the road, but thankfully you got apps now and you can order. And
we're working on it.
You're working.
And it looks like I pulled out more of my hair than you have yours, but that's another, let's don't go there.
Let's don't go there. All right. So first of all, you have to have some sort of aspiration, and the leader is going to articulate that in very simple, clear, repeatable language. Now you have to amplify. It's not. So I take it that as far as culture rules go, it's not going to happen by accident. I think you said that no company or no culture drifts to greatness. Right. So now we have to amplify.
Yes. And we spent a lot of time, probably more than you would imagine, trying to figure out what is the single word that encapsulates the almost infinite activities. There are many, many, many ways that you can amplify something. But we felt like there's so much noise in the world. We actually liked the whole concept of you've got to get above the noise, and you need a persistent and a consistent message, even though it may be reinforced many, many ways, so that people understand you're serious and this is legit and this is not a flavor of the month. This isn't going to go away next week or in 6 weeks. And so we began to look for ways that leaders could get above the noise. And before you even ask, I know you want an example. Of all of the examples and all of the strategies that we unearthed during this process, I would encourage the leaders who are hearing this that the number one thing you can do is to embody the values, whether you have values or not. Walk the talk, whatever language you want. You have to role model. People always watch the leader, whether we want them to or not. You've got, I tell leaders, if you don't, let's pretend you do have values in a proper sense. If you're not going to live the values, please don't share them, because you will destroy your leadership. Any trust, any confidence, any credibility is gone when people see you saying one thing and consistently doing something different
Yes.
your leadership's done at that
Yes.
point.
Yes. So, you remind me of a typical situation when you're working with a leader of they're frustrated with a certain employee. Somebody on the team is a point of frustration. And, come to find out that employee is frustrated with them as well. And you say, well, and it's like, so let me be clear here. You want them to respond to you in a way different from the way that you are on the inside about them. So you want them to trust you, you don't trust them. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of things about modeling the way,
Hmm.
how do we live this out? And so I'm working with a guy right now, you'll get a kick out of this. He said, what are the 5 or 10 top kind of topics we need to work with our team on? I said, well, let's ask them what they're frustrated with their teams about. So these are leaders of leaders, and come back with this list, and then say to them, how can you be better at doing those things that frustrate you about other people?
Hmm.
The guy I was working with kind of cracked up. He said, ooh, that's a little backhanded, isn't it? But I think sometimes, we look at these situations and we're not modeling the way. We just think, we had to fix other people. So you have to amplify it with your own behavior. If it's about caring, then you dang well better be walking around caring for people.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the third rule, has to do with adapting. So, by the way, A's are fantastic, right? So you got a little list here, right? Aspire, right? Amplify, adapt. What are you trying to get at with this rule?
Well, let me give a quick cautionary note. If you have a clear, simple, repeatable aspiration and you amplify it, you will see progress. A culture will begin to shift or be formed around that aspiration. The caution is leaders, myself included, we love to do things and we love to get them done and we love to check them off and we love to move on. If you don't adapt, you're in trouble. Because when you try to bubble wrap your culture and you try to protect it, you'll suffocate. You have got to constantly be looking for ways to enhance your culture. Now, I've gotten feedback even in the last 30 days about you got to say more about that. And this is actually something I probably didn't do enough of in the book. After you write a book, you get smarter and smarter as people give you feedback. But here's the quick 50,000-foot view on enhance. 3 particular domains to pay attention to. First, are there toxins? And we do talk about toxins in the book. Are there patterns of unhealthy and unproductive behavior? The leader has to attack those immediately. But there are a lot of cultures where the toxins are not at a level that they are causing any imminent danger. Well, the second opportunity is how do you leverage your strengths? If you're good at something and you double down on it and you get significantly better, you just enhance your culture. And the third is this whole area of new capabilities. That happened to us about 10, 12 years ago when we determined that we wanted to be more innovative as a culture. We've always had innovators. Truett Cathy invented the Chick-fil-A sandwich, the chicken sandwich. So we're no strangers to innovation, but it was not pervasive. It was not part of the culture. And so we set that aspiration. We began to amplify it. And now we're more innovative as a culture. But that was because we had senior leadership saying, how can we enhance our culture? And they saw that as a new capability. But again, the caution, I don't want leaders to miss the caution. I have talked to so many leaders that want to get it right and freeze dry. It's like, no, they move totally into protection mode. And over time, you'll destroy a culture if you do not adapt.
Mm-hmm. You make me think about in a changing world, if you don't adapt, you become irrelevant. If the world was stable and steady, that would be different, but everything around us is changing. And so there comes a point where you're irrelevant or you declare victory too soon. I think a
Sure.
classic blunder of leaders who are excited about the progress and, like you're saying, let's do the next exciting thing. And they declare victory too soon. And a year or two later, they're back solving that same thing again, as
Yeah.
part of the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a CEO call me a while back and he wanted me to help him install a new culture. And I was concerned, even by his choice of language, install a new culture. And again, a longer conversation, the essence of it, I said, well, you do realize that the Chick-fil-A culture that he admired, we've been working on it for over 50 years and we work on it every day. And he could not comprehend that. He said, that doesn't make any sense. I said, it's the only way that it continues to be vibrant and continues to thrive. And he just said, I don't want to mess with something like that. It's like,
What do
okay,
you
then you kind of got the culture you got.
Yeah. What do you say to leaders? Give me some examples of a day-to-day amplification, a leader who is out amplifying culture or adapting culture. Sorry, I went back to amplify. Is
Yeah.
adapting in the culture world.
Okay. So adapt. Um, Great listening always precedes appropriate adaptation. So you got to be listening, and you need to do it in all sorts of ways. And you may need formal channels and informal channels and focus groups and one-on-one conversations and pay attention. Our research has revealed, and we've done this now on multiple projects, and I probably need to work on this by itself in the future. There is a gap of almost, well, it is 40 points in almost every country in the world between what senior leaders think about their organization and what frontline people think about their organization. Senior leaders are not in touch, generally speaking, with the realities of their business. It's really hard to adapt well if you're so far out of touch. Again, simple questions like, is your organization a great place to work? Senior leaders rate it globally 40 points above the people doing the work. And so when you talk about adapting and a day-to-day example, it starts with listening. It starts with listening. And then again, there's a lot we could say here. There are any number of strategies. We call them countermeasures in the book. Once you discover some of these things that need work, and you can do everything from rip the band-aid, which is about a drastic change in a short period of time, to you can take it off Broadway, is what we call it. It's what Google does. They do lots of experiments and tests and pilots, learn from them, iterate, and do it again. And it's not on the main stage, it's not in the bright lights, but when they find something that works, then they deploy it throughout the organization. So we've got 6 or 8 of those countermeasures or strategies in the book, but you can see they can go from drastic, earth-shattering. It's what Reagan did after the space shuttle disaster. He shut down NASA, changed the systems, changed the process, changed the culture, changed the values. That's a rip the band-aid. And then these little experiments, that's another way to change a culture. But you got to discern what's at stake, what's the sense of urgency that's required. But you got to be vigilant and diligent as a leader. That adapting is part of the game, right? There are 3 rules. They're not 2 rules. And if you just aspire and if you just amplify, you will ultimately lose the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, the book is relevant and so great. I mean, just I'm excited every time something, like I said, something comes across my desk that you have produced, you and your team. So I'm thankful for Culture Rules. Now I understand that you're doing something early in the launch process to encourage people to grab a hold of this book, which, by the way, it's not an expense, right? You would say it's an investment. It's great. So
Thank you.
what's the special motivation that you're offering?
Well, yeah, we'll see if people are interested in this, but my team came up with the idea. What if we did some early incentives, as you just referenced, and if a team or an organization buys 11 copies, I'll do a 60-minute Zoom call with their team. Now, we'll see. Maybe people want that, maybe people don't. I would love the opportunity to speak to hundreds and hundreds of teams across the world. We'll see how that plays out. For anybody that's interested, you go to leadeveryday.com, and that has the details there.
Okay,
We'll see.
leadeveryday.com. And
Leadeveryday.com.
and it'll explain how you either purchase it there, or you buy it and whatever.
You can purchase them anywhere, but you go there to claim your bonus, and your bonus would be me coming to spend time with your team.
Let me ask you, how long launch day is today? How long is this valid?
I think another week.
Okay.
After launch.
Yeah. So you have about a week to say, yeah, I want to buy 11 books and spend an hour with Mark.
And let me say that there are a few other gifts and premiums and a field guide and a journal that you also get. I'm not going to go through all that, but it's not just the time with me. There's some other resources there as well.
Yes. Well, you've always
that come with the package.
You've always been very open-handed, very generous. In this kind of thing. I have other stuff on my shelf that has come from you, and it's all fantastic. So
thank you.
Well, thanks for your time today, Mark. I wish you well with this new venture, and I know there's more in the pipeline. We're excited about your passion for leadership. I guess a traditional way to end something like this is to say, what's a final word of encouragement that you would love to give to leaders?
All right, so I'll make this brief. Some of your audience has seen the movie Ready Player One or read Ernest Cline's novel by the same name. Spielberg made the movie. I'm not going to talk to you much about the movie, but it takes place in two worlds. It takes place in the real world and in a virtual world they call the Oasis. And the hero in the story, Wade Watson, who takes the online persona of Percival, the medieval knight who was searching for the Holy Grail, he offers a line in that movie that I chose to close the book with. He says that people go to the Oasis because of what they can do there, and they stay because of who they can become. And my encouragement and my challenge to leaders is you have within your control to create a culture that will attract people because of what they can do there. But what would happen if you created that culture and then they stayed because of who they could become? I want to encourage you, aim high. You can do this. These rules will work in any organization in the world. And I think you'll be thankful for the results.
Thank you, Mark. The book is Culture Rules. It's out today. We're thankful for you, for the book, and for your passion for leadership. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Dan. Take care.